housing developments took off.
Yeah. That is a real piece of Americana, the Quonset hut.
Quonset hut.
We no longer see those around.
Very, very rarely. Once in a while you find one in some industrial place somewhere where some construction company may have one and they're storing trucks in it or something.
Yeah. I believe just off to their left would be where the old Sod and Shield restaurant was.
Yeah, that was earlier on. That was Laffey's Tavern.
A favorite spot, I may say, for many folk here in town.
Indeed it was. And just beyond that, of course, was North Beverly Depot, which shows right here in the apex of Dodges Row and Enon Street in the background.
Yeah. Isn't this a wonderful view, though, the way the Enon Street and Dodges Row head off, split off, and each head off in their own direction here. And off here in the foreground, of course, today it's all built in.
It's all built in. It's built in everywhere up there. Where the Quonset huts were, eventually became just a field after they were removed, and stayed that way for a while until they built that mall up beyond Laffey's, which of course today is Brooks and Old Buster's and that area in there. Those were originally Kinney Shoes, and I forget what the other store was in there, but it wasn't the ones that are there today. And of course you can see way off in the distance the same corner of Wenham Lake we were looking at in the other picture. Only this time we're looking the other way. We're looking west.
Right. Okay. By God, Rich, we have still yet another one. Another aerial view. This one is Ellsworth Avenue, Clifton Avenue, Beacon Street in that area, dated about 1946.
Yeah, and you can see in the foreground in this field here what was part of the old Southworth nursery down there where they used to raise trees and plants and that sort of thing. And again, you had a lot of peat down there, so it was probably natural it would be something like that there. Nursery Street actually runs left to right in the foreground. That's still there today. So if people wonder why it's called Nursery Street, that's what it came from. Right. And our house was supposed to have been moved down there to the corner of Clifton Avenue, and that was during the time when the shopping plaza was going to be built in that whole area up around where my father's house was. And they actually had gotten to the point where they had moved us out and they were getting ready to move the house, and it never happened. So we were fortunate.
Fortunately. Yeah. You were telling me, though, that you got a few add-ons to your house after the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, because of the disruption, having to move our family out of the house for 6 months and then have us move back again all for nothing. My father got, I think, enough money that he was able to put an enclosed porch on the house and do the driveway over, and I think he had a new heating system put in, which was considerable in those days.
Well, it seems only fair. Now, we're up in North Beverly, looking toward Pond Hill, going about as far into North Beverly as one can go before you get over to Wenham. And this picture was taken just about 100 years ago. It was dated 1892 by a fellow whose name was Benjamin Conant, and he was one of Wenham's outstanding photographers. He was, I believe, the town librarian for a great number of years, and from about 1890 through 1918, he went around with his camera equipment slung over his back or on his bicycle as he rode, and he took thousands of pictures, Rich, most of which now are over in the Wenham Museum.
That's right.
And Harold Boothroyd is doing an excellent job bringing them all back to life again.
Yes, he is.
But this Mr. Conant was just an amazing man to leave all of this rich history for us to see here.
That's right, and it's unusual because you have to force yourself, as I'm sure you know from taking some of these present-day pictures, you have to force yourself to go out and take these rather mundane shots of everyday life, which you ask yourself, why am I doing this? And to have someone go around, and it's easy today to do it with a snapshot camera, but to have someone go around as he did with those big glass plate negatives, the big view camera with the tripod and the hood you had to put over your head and all that went with it.
Right.
An incredible amount of bother, plus it was all done with a horse and wagon.
Sure.
Tremendous dedication.
Not to mention the people who stare at you.
Oh, without any question. That's right.
Wondering what in the world you're doing.
That's right. That's right.
So I think we've captured here the now and then. I tried to get as close as I could to where this picture was taken.
Yes.
I think we're looking here in 1991 about where Mr. Conant took the original picture.
That's about right. You're up about in front of the Mariner and looking toward Wenham, and of course in the old picture you see the car tracks going along the side of the street, and that was still a horse car line at that time. The electrics hadn't come in yet.
Yep.
And so you can tell that there's no wires there overhead.
Yeah. There is a house that stands behind, let's see, in the new picture here, we can just barely see this house.
Just sticks out.
And right behind that house, I think, is one of the old ones that we see in
I think you're right.
1890.
There's a lot of them still up there, and the ice cutters used to live in those houses up off those side street, up in Sargent Street and up that way, and Charlie Barter referred to that as the Badlands. I won't comment any further.
Pursue that.
No.
Okay, now, these are fascinating photographs here. The Ice House Fire, Wenham Lake, 1937, a huge blaze that destroyed a large amount of property up there.
The really fascinating part of these pictures is that they're in color, and they date to, as you say, 1937, and we're indebted to Philip Noakes, who allowed us to copy these from some early slides that he took. And these were not Kodak slides. This was some offbeat type of film that he had tried. He was a photo buff. And the whole process, the emulsion system and everything as we know it today, was different in this particular format. And they were really thick and dense, and I took them to a laboratory and I said, you know, I don't care what you have to shine through these, but see if you can get a print of these. And they finally did, and it's amazing that we actually have these views in color that go that far back.
Perseverance pays off.
It certainly does. Yeah, it does. But
those are great. Those are marvelous pictures.
Yep, nice view of something that changed that area forever.
1937, imagine taking pictures like that. Okay. Now, we're back here, well, actually, we're right across the street, in essence here. This is Red's Esso station, which stands about where Dunkin' Donuts is today.
Yeah, there was a gas station there for a number of years, changed owners over the years, but that's basically, you know, the same location. And I don't know, I just love that Esso shot. It's just sort of a slice of life. It's your typical 1950s gas station. I mean, with all the little displays, your little oil cans piled up in pyramids, and your little tires with the white walls on display in little racks, and your air pump hanging on the corner, which the kids didn't destroy in those days like they do today. And the old car there in the pump bay, and it's just a classic little slice of life.
I'm sure a lot of our viewers stopped there more than once.
Oh, I'm sure.
For $1's worth of gas or two, which went a long way back in those days.
And of course, even Esso is gone today. Esso is Exxon.
True.
So even that's disappeared.
True. It's interesting that a donut shop would be there today, and of course off to the right of this present-day donut shop, there was the Marshall store.
That's right. That's where it began. Right there, right off of the tailgate of his station wagon, from what I'm told.
And I remember going by there in the mid-50s, and there was a fruit stand, a Marshall's fruit stand, vegetable stand, and from that
From that grew all that we know today that's become Marshall's.
Yeah. Those were the days when gas was 20 cents a gallon?
Maybe not even that. I think I remember it being about 17 cents a gallon.
For half $1, you know, some gas and a package of cigarettes, maybe.
My mother, I can hear her today going in and saying, give me $1's worth, and then that would run the car for a week. Okay.
This, by the way, is 1952, Rich, that we've just seen.
Right.
Now, again, 1951, same place, a fellow by the name of Kent
Zeeland.
Okay, and he's standing there by his 1934 Ford Roadster.
Yeah, and that's probably typical of cars that kids had back in the 50s. They used to like to go around. They called them jalopies in those days, and you don't hear that word anymore. And a lot of people used to paint words all over them, like opportunity, hear it knock, and things like that, and tie raccoon tails to the antenna, and things you don't see anymore. But yeah, that was Kent Zeeland. He's still around North Beverly. I know him well and see him quite often, and I hope he's watching tonight.
Good. Yeah, that's quite a car.
It is indeed. I'd like to have that today.
Yeah. At the filling station.
At the filling station.
Okay, we're up at Beverly Airport for a photograph here. 1932. A Curtiss Condor is either landing or taking off. Here we're not sure which.
They used to bring planes like this in apparently on Sundays, and they would give people rides. And, well, they probably didn't give them rides. They sold rides, but probably for a reasonable price. And the idea apparently was to get people more into aviation as a practical matter, instead of just looking at it as a barnstorming, aerial circus. And this Curtiss Condor was a fairly large transport for its day. It's a double-winged plane. It's a biplane. And that, of course, was the forerunner of what became the Douglas DC-3 in the mid-30s, which was far better and bigger than this type of ship.
Yeah, I imagine they would have to entice people to get up in the air in those
Oh,
days.
I think so. You know, because up until that point, aviation was strictly the realm of daredevils and wing walkers and barnstorming and old jennies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And to actually entice people out of the train and get them to fly somewhere was quite a project, because it was nothing like what we know aviation as today.
Emilio Cuccinelli, one of our earlier guests on Times Past, mentioned that he went up in at about this period of time with a brand new hat on, and he leaned out over the cockpit and away it went.
Oh, sure. Oh, you were right outside there in those old biplanes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now this land up here was really part of what, the Hood's property?
It was a combination. It was part of Hood's property and Swift's property, and they got a little bit of land from each one of those areas and actually made that airport out of it around 1927. The Beverly Aero Club was formed about that time, and it was nothing more than just a clearing in the grass. There was no paved runway or anything as we know it.
Oh. And we might mention here too, in talking, many of these fine old photographs, the negatives, were destroyed, well, what, 25 years ago, when the Beverly Times was
That's
down
right.
on Cabot Street, and
That's
they moved
right.
up into Dunham Road.
That's right.
You told me that they threw away tons of valuable negatives.
That's right, and the sad part was they were right across the street from the Historical Society, and nobody was even told that they were going to dispose of all that, but the new owners at the time apparently had no interest in what was filed there, and I understand simply decided to eliminate all the 4x5 speed graphic negatives and the 8x10 prints that were stored there, and it was all filed and cross-referenced, and it was just a great, great historical source, just gone for good.
Yeah. Our good friend Ernest Tucker was there, and he tried to save as much as he could.
I understand that, yeah, he grabbed an armful one day when he happened to walk by there and saw them throwing them out, and that's about all we have.
Boy.
Too bad.
Too bad indeed. Okay, now we're over into the well, what is today the Brown condominiums, I guess. What do they call those, Rich?
I'm not really sure. I guess Brown School condominiums. It sounds good to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
But this is a actually 1870s picture, the old one that we're looking at here.
And that shows the building on the left, which is the Bass River School, which is what it originally was. It was a wooden building, which later on was added onto, and they actually put a second story into it and then pushed the roof up. And even the school that's there today, that's the condominiums, it still says Bass River School in that cement stone up near the top of the building. And it was known as the Brown School after Charles Brown, who was a longtime principal up there.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course you were telling me when that Dodge Street school burned down, Dodge's Row School, all of the kids from that area had to come up here.
Had to come way down here,
Yeah.
which was quite a haul for them.
Yeah, and the old Bass River School would have sat right where those pine trees are there?
Yeah,
did you say?
just in back of those, actually right next to where this present-day building stands, there's one photograph that we have, which is not here tonight, but which is in the book, and it showed the two buildings actually standing side by side, which they did for who knows how many days before they actually tore down the old one after they had the new one built.
Yeah.
Because obviously the kids still had to go to school while they were building the new one.
Right, and now in this old photo, we see the little tiny pine trees.
Yeah, little
here.
saplings are all in a row with sticks holding them up, and of course those are what are these big evergreens today.
Yep.
That's one connection that's there.
That is a connection for sure. Now the Hose house here, this is still in existence.
That's right. That's the old Hose 3 house, and that was right by the school up there, about across from where the Second Church Parish Hall was. And that building was moved after they built the new fire station down at Foster's Corner, where it is today, and it was moved down onto Cabot Street, actually 621 Cabot. It's across the street from where I grew up, and that is the old Hose 3 house. You can still look up, if you can see it here in this picture, probably not, but right under the eaves are these decorative brackets which appear in the old picture of that Hose house. That's the very same building.
Yeah. You were telling me you didn't realize that this was the house until we were well along in years.
That's right. My father mentioned it one day out of clear blue sky, and I said, "What?" I said, "You never told me that," and his response was, "You never asked."
There you go. Flag Pond would be just off to the left here.
That was off, yeah, that was off just down here in this hollow out of the picture to the right.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Now we're over on Wenham Lake. Again, Mr. Conant took this picture in 1891, and it shows a cottage and a lake scene.
That's probably picture that you couldn't get today because it was taken from an area where there are now houses, so you couldn't get that view exactly. You've got a shot taken from the end of Pershing Avenue, which is close, but this picture would have been a little bit more over to the right.
Yeah.
And of course there were cottages there. It was a recreational area back before it was a water supply.
Yeah. As I took a camera up there recently, I think they've regraded the whole area because I couldn't find the spot except that the lake looks similar to the old picture here.
That's
so
right.
I think this is about where
you're about as close as you're going to get
where
today.
the house sat 100 years ago. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that was 1891 Ben Conant.
Yes.
Now we're going over to the Dodgers Row crossing here, and we're seeing an old steam engine going through.
Yeah, this was in the 1930s, but this would have been true right up until the mid-40s, probably about 1948, I guess, was about the last of steam on that particular line. It ran down to Gloucester and Rockport till 1954, and Marblehead and places like that until 56. But 1948 would have been about the end of it up here on the old Eastern Route main line. The gates and the gate tender's shanty are on the right side of the picture here, and of course that was when the gate tender had to come out and actually crank the gates down by hand.
Yep.
And they had rods and gears under the street, under the pavement, that put down all 4 gates, and the furthest one away was probably some 40 feet across diagonally, so must have been quite a setup. And that's, of course, all gone today. Everything's automatic gates, and you can see in the new picture where Nick's roast beef and so forth is behind the gate stanchions. That's about where the gate tender's shanty used to be.
Yeah. Didn't they make a fearsome sight, those steam engines coming